Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host Holly Wharton. Ready to Bloom helps heart-centered women entrepreneurs to overcome their fears, blocks, and limiting beliefs so they can be more successful in business. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute to leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more we can help women in business. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 80. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Amber McCue from Nicest. Amber McCue has a sweet spot for helping entrepreneurs do better business and increase their bottom line. Amber partners up with the nicest, smartest CEOs around. Entrepreneurs come to her to build streamlined, scalable, profitable business operations without working 24/7, and they are not disappointed. Welcome, Amber.
Hi, thank you for having me, Holly.
I'm so excited to talk about this stuff with you.
Me too. I love this stuff.
So tell us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today with what you're doing.
So I have a background in operations and really human resource management, human capital, and tying sort of the people stuff to the making business happen and the financials. Mm-hmm. And I strangely had an interest in this really since as long as I can remember. I focused on this in college as well as organizational communications. And really that came around from the people aspect. I love engaging with people, communicating with people, all to drive and get results in our businesses. Mm-hmm. So I did some consulting for a while. I worked for a consulting firm in an operations role and touched on all of these facets that I just mentioned. Then I worked at a database marketing company for a while, marketing agency, and really was missing the connection with people on a more intimate level. So I started an MBA program that was really focused on organization development and what makes up organizations, people. really a theme here, as you can tell. And in that program, I was really enjoying the coaching piece. And I thought I'm going to go down the life coach path. I want that intimacy. There was a coaching aspect to my program. So I was practicing that and doing that. And I started life coaching, Holly, and I so missed business. I had to get back to business. And anytime I was talking to people about their plans and their strategies and their go forward steps, I wanted to talk about business. I wanted to focus on their career and their what they were going to do to move ahead from a business perspective. And the life stuff is fun. That's like icing and gravy. But I like the meat of focusing on business. So my husband gave me a big fat "I told you so" when that happened. And at that time, as I was pursuing life coaching as well, I'd started getting into my creative outlet, which is photography. And I started a boudoir photography business. And a parallel path, I realized I love business. So in that now, I'm more managed, and I'm a strategic partner to my partner business owner in the photography business. And I've essentially cloned myself on those things that I don't necessarily do best or aren't in my zone of genius. And I partner heavily in Nicest with, as you said, some of the nicest CEOs around. If you've got a choice as to who we're going to work with, I definitely prefer the nice people. So that's where we focus. And I just love it. It's so much fun.
I love that. I love your enthusiasm for your business. I can tell that you really, really love what you do and what you're focusing on.
I do. And I think that's the heart of it. And you go through these journeys, right? We're like, oh, how does this feel? Do I like this? Am I in my zone? Am I most productive? Am I, really feeling it? And, kind of weaving through, got to a place finally where I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. And you just know when you're doing something that you love. And it's nice to hear that you can pick up on that too.
Yeah, definitely. And so how did you find this zone of genius of yours? Because I know a lot of people struggle with that.
A lot of exploration. And honestly, my mentor, Lewis Schiff, the author of a book called Business Brilliant, it's constantly in refinement, right? And I'm actually reading a book, Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh right now. And he talks about something similar that, you do one thing and you kind of master it. and then you look for the next thing. So it's this constant exploration for me and really tapping in to feelings and pulse checking with myself. Like, how does this feel? Am I enjoying it? And there were times along the journey where I couldn't answer that question. Like, I don't really know. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what it is. I don't exactly know how I'm feeling right now. So when those things came up, I would just try something new. Like, let's try something totally different. Even if it was just a different route to work, just so I could start to tap in and reset my brain on different things, because you get in routines and habits develop and you sort of lose sense of how do I really feel in this moment? Is this what I want? So I just started mixing up my routines and I still do that today when I'm like, okay, you're in a funk, try something new and step into that, aerial yoga, photography classes, new meditation class, just all sorts of things, rock climbing, right? That'll help me hit that reset button as I'm going through the journey and exploring. And that's really what helped me get here today as well.
And that kind of stuff also takes you out of your comfort zone.
Oh, it does, right? So there's the added benefit of that. Because as entrepreneurs and business owners, there's going to be a lot of discomfort. So if we can get comfortable with that and put ourselves in those positions, that'll help us.
That is so, so true. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think there's so much personal and professional growth that you do as an entrepreneur. And it's just, you're constantly learning and doing new things. And it really just stretches us on, daily, weekly basis.
Does it ever? I was at a speech or an event and I heard Allie Brown speak, and she was the first person I heard say, owning a business is the biggest personal development exercise you will ever go through. And I felt such relief when I heard that, because I constantly felt like, I don't know how I feel. I'm growing. I'm not growing. I'm back forward. And such a relief to know that everybody feels that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I remember my first business, like now I'm used to, not knowing what the heck I'm doing and learning as I go. But my first business, I was just so confused because I had no clue what the heck I was doing, but yet I was doing it and I was learning stuff. And I remember this one day talking to my first business was in hospitality, and talking to this other business owner, and I said, do you feel like you're totally on top of things and you know what you're doing and you know what your business is going? And he's like, I have no clue. And I just thought, oh my God, that is so amazing to hear that. I'm not the only one. I thought everyone had it all together and it was just me.
And the most successful business owners that I come into and the most successful leaders are willing and okay to admit, like, I don't know what I'm doing. There is someone, either I don't know and I'm going to find out because this is something I'm interested in or I need to know, or I don't know, but I know I have some people I can turn to get that information. And so number one, being in the space of it's okay to say I don't know. And number two, you're actually putting yourself as an advantage if you don't try and focus on doing everything and you get some help with those things that you don't know how to do or you don't do very well. And actually there's research out there that supports, and this is in the book Business Brilliant that I referred to earlier, 9 out of 10 self-made millionaires and billionaires will find someone else to do those things that they know that they can't do very well and someone else can do better, versus people who stay in the middle class and have a middle class mindset. 2 out of 3 times try to do it all. I can do it all myself. I'm going to keep trying. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Yeah, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah. And there's so many people out there who are going to do those things better than you are. You can't be perfect and fabulous at everything. You've got to focus on what the one thing is that you do really, really well and just outsource the rest.
Exactly. I love it.
Yay. So was there a point in your business where things really started to flow?
Yeah, it probably maybe a year and a half ago, I was starting a new program called Freshly Implemented, which is now my favorite business baby. And I was starting that program and I had such peace because I knew I'd been percolating on it for about 9 months. So I knew that the market needed this. There was a gap in the market that my program was going to fill. And I decided, because I had been doing the analysis and planning and watching and observing and doing some research, I knew that I can market this in a totally different way as well. So I really decided to take ownership of how I wanted to serve my clients. I had identified a way that they could be served better in the market. And so when I stepped into that leadership and that ownership role, It really, to your question, all started to flow. And certainly there was legwork up into that point that got me to that space of ease and flow. But it was a beautiful thing. And we've certainly evolved, and there's been back and forth since then, like, this isn't quite working. And again, ebb and flow, it's definitely a journey. But stepping into that place of leadership was the big turning point.
Good. Now, you mentioned something a little bit earlier about cloning yourself in your business, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today. Because, of course, as we've just discussed, some people try to do it all, but that's not the best way to do things. So what are your recommendations for people? What are your top tips on how people can clone themselves in their business and get the help they need?
Well, Holly, so often people, entrepreneurs who are new and who have been at the game for a while, have some similar beliefs that come up that hold them back from stepping into this space of outsourcing. And I will mention a few, and let me know if any of them resonate for you, if you've heard them or experienced them at some time in your career as an entrepreneur. But one that comes up quite often is, nobody can do it as good as I can. All right, so we've got control things. It makes sense. We're stepping out into our own. We want that freedom. We want that autonomy. We want it to be done right? Another one that comes up is budget. I don't have budget for this. And then another one that I hear again and again is, I don't want to have to redo it. It's going to take me just as long to train that person or have to redo that work. I might as well just do it myself. So do those resonate?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've heard them from so many people, and I know I've been at that point. Not so much the first one, because I'm definitely not, I'm not a perfectionist, and I do recommend that other people can do things much better than I can. But I do get that sense of, this is the way I want things done, and how the heck long is it going to take me to explain this to someone, even if it is a repetitive task and it's, an investment in time and that kind of thing. It is kind of like, oh, God, I have to, train.
Exactly. And the reality is that all of those things take us to the theme of our conversation, away from what we do best. And they also take us then away from potentially revenue generating activities, right? So I definitely recommend that, number one, step into that leadership role, own it. You are running a business, you want to grow so you can impact and prompt change in the world. I firmly believe that what we are doing in our businesses, we have the opportunity to create a massive ripple effect. And so we'd step into that leadership role. If we systematize and sort of document some of these things, the first time I outsourced, I documented what I was outsourcing, the activity, so well that I handed it off to my first ever virtual assistant, who was from the Philippines. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to mess this up. Your system outlined this so well. And she never messed it up unless I messed it up when I was handing off the information. So, if you document things and get a realistic system and process in place for them, and that doesn't have to take a lot of time to set up. I often, even though I love systems, have to trick myself into sitting down. And once I sit down, it's 20 minutes, done. It's out. You documented it. You can now hand this off. And that really tees you up for what I call the cloning process. But as you have indicated, we don't want someone who can do exactly what you can do. We want someone who can do those things better. So cloning is just the fun way to talk about it, but we don't want an exact you. We want
exactly. We want someone who can do the stuff that we can't do that complements us.
Exactly. And then we can go through that cloning and that outsourcing process. And I mentioned that my first VA was from the Philippines. It doesn't necessarily have to cost a lot of money. So I recommend that people dip in at an activity that if something gets messed up, because that's a fear that some people may have. So let's face that. Let's address that and not give away, the biggest, most client-facing activity first. But let's give away something that, if by chance something does go wrong, let's plan for that and give away something that it's okay. We can fix this. No problem. So start with something that's fairly easy, that won't cause you a lot of stress and anxiety to hand out. And start with something that won't break the bank if you have budget concerns, right? Or and really not even concerns. We do just want to be smart. If you're newly stepping into outsourcing, step into something that it'll be a reasonable investment for you to make. And if something goes wrong or you didn't find the first match to start, because after all, 50% of people that you bring onto your team likely won't be the right fit. So plan for that. Don't crazy invest. And then step back and let people sort of work their magic and really step into that leadership role again and support people and help them help you.
Yeah. Now, I think one of the things that is a huge concern for people who haven't either managed staff before or had employees before is how to find this, complementary clone of theirs. Hiring is really, really hard when you don't have the experience. And as you said, 50% of the people might not work out.
Exactly. It is hard. And oftentimes, you can find great people anywhere. You can find them from Odesk. You can find them, by listening to this podcast. You're tapping in and getting resources and hearing things. Either one of us may know someone, right? So just reaching out to people in your network and asking, hey, I'm looking for this. Do you know anyone? Chances are you'll find a great person through your network alone, right? But that can take some time. As I mentioned, Odesk, posting in networking groups that you're in. Again, reaching out into your network, online postings, job boards. There are Craigslist. I know so many people who found great people on Craigslist, and there are staffing agencies out there. You could probably search find virtual assistant or virtual assistant staffing and get support. So that they're out there. I'd say the harder part of that process is interviewing and knowing what you need so you can find the right person to fill that need. So I definitely recommend people have a role description in place that outlines what they're going to need and what they want this person to do and the skills that they want them to have. And then you might have some must-have and then some nice-to-haves as you think about growth and the first activities that you want to outsource and then maybe the second round and the third round, right? Because if you can find those things in one or two people, that would be helpful so they can cover off on each other, when one's on vacation or something comes up. The other piece of that is interviewing right. So you know what you need. You've started to find some people that you might want to interview. You might actually pre-screen them by having them fill out a form that gives you some basic information and some insight as to, what's your desired rate? Do you have these skills? Are you comfortable working virtually? Whatever those things are. And then move to a phone screen and an interview process where you ask more detailed questions. And Holly, I'm going to give away a tip here. So oftentimes people ask questions in the wrong way. So you're not even getting to the right information. So if we're looking for someone to post blogs on WordPress for us, which was one of the first things I outsourced, and I wouldn't necessarily ask someone, hey, do you know WordPress? Do you know how to post blogs on WordPress? They could just say yes to that. Instead, ask that person, can you tell me about a time when you worked in WordPress? What did you do when you were doing that work in WordPress? Oh, okay, great. It sounds like you did post blogs on a weekly basis. What process did you follow for that? So what happens in the beginning, we didn't ask, do you know WordPress? We weren't asking yes or no questions, but we were asking people to tell us about a time when they did XYZ, when they did the thing that we need them to do. Because then it's not hypothetical anymore. It's not saying yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I've done that before. I think I can. It's someone taking you to a place in time where they actually did it.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to probe and you want to dig in more there because you're going to learn about that person. You're going to learn about how they worked. You're probably going to get some tips and some ideas on things that you can incorporate into your process. So even if you're not, you end up not hiring that person or bringing them onto your team, you've still learned as you went through that. So it's really reframing how you ask questions and you will increase, your 50-50 odds of finding the right people for your team if you just change the way that you hire and engage and interview people.
Yeah, that is an excellent tip because when you ask those open-ended questions, you get so much more information, things that you might never have expected to get that will help you really determine if this is the right person for you or not.
Exactly. And it takes it from a space of hypothetical as well to a space of reality. You've done this. Okay, let's probe. How do you actually work? You just get so much more.
Yeah, that's excellent. So what are the kind of top things that you recommend people start out with if they're thinking about outsourcing?
I recommend you start with, if there are things on your plate that give you a headache, that again aren't in your zone of genius, they really suck your energy, and you procrastinate them. Those things right off of your plate first, especially if they're high impact activities to your business. Again, I go back to my blog posting example because that was something that I didn't enjoy. I liked writing the content. I didn't like everything that came after that. Researching, posting on social media, it's a little bit, I'm like being in the strategy and the creation mode, when I move to maintenance mode, I don't succeed as well. So know where you play to your strengths, know where you do better, know where you don't, and get help with those things where you're procrastinating, where it's sucking your time, where it's sucking your energy. Also, I recommend starting again with those things that are potentially going to be high impact, but if something happens, if something breaks down in the process, it's not going to be the end of the world. So don't outsource, your client-facing activities first necessarily if you're new at stepping into this space. Also, if there's something that you love, but it takes you a ton of time, think about pieces that you can outsource. Again, I love engaging with my clients. I love engaging with my prospects and with the nice community. I don't love the act of posting. So think about pieces of a process that you can get help with so it accelerates and advances what you can do and what you need to do. But again, it's an energy suck for you, or you don't enjoy it, or you're not good at it. All of those things are things that you want to get rid of first. And Holly, I actually have a worksheet that we can give to people to help them through this process in a mini workshop that would go through and help you think about, all right, what am I going to outsource first? What do I need to think about second? And maybe what do I need to systematize before I outsource or instead of outsourcing? Because this is something I want to keep, but it takes me a long time. So if I systematize it, I can become more efficient in that space. So if it's okay with you, we can share that link as well.
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay, great. I'll get that over to you.
Perfect. Excellent. So you say on your website that if you clone yourself and you get this help that you need, you can increase productivity by as much as 20% in your business.
Oh, easy. I was doing that 20% metric and calculating like numbers, and you can beyond. I'd say 20% is the baseline of what you can do and how you can maximize and how you can grow your business. If you start to focus in your zone of genius, you focus on the things that you're really good at and that are high impact, and get some help with those other things that aren't as impactful or you're not as good at, right? So 20% baseline.
Oh, that sounds excellent.
And I'm not making this up. I've talked to several people in the last week, and there are skeptics out there. But so just dip your toe in and don't give up the first time, because it's not necessarily going to work the first time if you're not experienced in hiring, if you're not experienced in documenting systems. So don't give up on me if your first one doesn't go exactly how you'd want it to go, but just know that it's part of a journey, and proof is in the pudding, right? Companies are not often founded. The most successful companies aren't a person of one. There are teams and there are people making good things happen. So find those people that can help you make good things happen.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. And I think one of the things that can go a long way as far as training someone is to actually create screen capture videos and just do your thing yourself that you're training them to do, talk them through it, do a video of it, and they can always refer back to it at any time if they have any questions along the way.
100%. The other thing is you could have the person who receives the video and watches the video actually document what they're doing, because then they get meta layers of learning. And ultimately, I think that a document is sometimes better than a video, right? Because where was it in the video again? You're clicking through it again. Unless you have the time markers, that would be a great way to alleviate that. But if you have it documented as well with pictures, and someone else creates that after the video that you've received, there's meta learning that's happening there. So the chances of that person actually succeeding and doing things in a way that you would want them to do from a cloning perspective will increase if you have those different layers.
That's excellent. Now, you actually have a 6-week program called How to Clone Yourself, correct?
Yes, we do. And that's available for anyone at niceops.com. But it takes everyone through those steps of leading. How do you lead? How do you step into that leadership role? What do you need to have done foundationally, from a vision and a guiding principles and, core business operation stuff, through systematizing lots of information on building the team, what to pay, what to outsource, all of that good stuff, and then how to train and how to communicate with that team on a long-term basis so you can move from, for example, that 20% that we talked about to 30, 40, 50, 60%.
Oh, excellent.
There's good stuff in there. And forget, because it's not something that probably wouldn't have even brought that specifically up today. It's not something I'm putting out there on a regular basis, but someone will go through it and they write me like, Amber, this is good. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. So actually I have something special for your listeners on that as well that I will give to you. And we can keep that a surprise if you would.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. I'll put it in the show notes.
Perfect.
How exciting. Thank you. Okay, so tell us about your other stuff that you offer. You've got the Business Accelerator, you've got Rave Ops. Tell us about other ways that you help people.
The Business Accelerator, is a 1 day or a half day where we dive in with people and think about what are you doing, where are you going, and how are you going to get there. So we look at, your big picture vision. We build out financial plans. We build out 90-day plans. We build out systems. We build out hiring plans. Really, as much as we can get done from a business operations perspective in that 1 day or that half day space. And that's really personalized and customized to you, what you need in your business, right? So there's no one size fits all for that. We sort of pull the right pieces together and really create sort of a 1 day or half day retreat for you and your business in your leadership role. The other thing, Rave Ops, is actually something that I do more on a referral basis. I have a lot of resources now that I'm referring people out to. Again, focus in your zone of genius. I love building these plans with people and partnering with CEOs to help them implement, but I'm actually doing less implementation these days. Again, maintenance mode. I want to set it up, but when we move this into maintenance mode, I am not your girl. I do a lot of referrals around Rave Ops. I have some clients for that, but I also refer a lot of people out to partners in my network or resources that I have. So definitely, if there's something you're looking for, we probably know someone. So feel free to reach out on that. And instead of Rave Ops, I'm actually, and in addition to the Business Accelerator, this year, I haven't told a lot of people about this publicly, I'm going to be setting up a school that helps business leaders think about all of the pieces that they need to do to run their business better. Because I think we're oftentimes at a disadvantage when we're coming into business and don't have business experience or skills. We're not looking at our numbers. We're not looking at our financials. What's profit margin? How do I calculate that? How can I communicate better with my team? How can I communicate better with my vendors? What do I do when there are obstacles with my clients? So really thinking about end-to-end, how do you run the business? We're setting that up this year.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I think that'll be my business baby number 2. And then I mentioned business baby number 1, which is freshly implemented, which is off and running for 2015. And that's really, it's my most intimate way of working with people. I'm there a lot. I'm in the groups a lot. We're set up in small groups, and that's really about keeping people accountable and moving people forward. So we'll open that up again for 2016.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's nice when you work on something for so long and it finally starts to come together. The pieces fit, there's flow, and it's hard work getting there sometimes. So for anybody who's listening is in the hard work space, it's the journey. Enjoy it. It's hard, but you will get through it, and there is lots of light and flow on the other end.
Yes. I think it's the hard thing is just kind of getting through that, knowing that there is a light on the other side of the tunnel. And it's not just a dark cave that's never ending.
But it can feel like that. So reaching out, getting help, and team members can help with that. I think things start to feel more real and start to feel like they're coming together, and you can get that flow faster when you leverage and connect with other people, because we're human after all, and that connection is really nice and helpful to us, on a personal level and in our business. So it's win-win.
Yeah, and that's so important. We can isolate ourselves when we're working alone.
It's so true. And even conversations like this, or when I've listened to a podcast, actually when radio was coming about, I just learned this recently that people felt so close and so connected just hearing that voice through the radio in their ears. It's so important. That has such impact.
It is. And my podcast is one of the favorite parts of my business. I absolutely love it. So I'm so excited to be doing this.
I'm so grateful that there are people doing podcasts, because whenever a request comes in to do, I'm like, yes, I would love to talk to you.
Let's just have a chat.
And if we can benefit other people while we're having that conversation, like
exactly.
Yeah.
Just have a cup of tea, coffee, join us for a chat.
Exactly.
So, Amber, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
Oh, I do. I have so many. I have a lot of those people who I consider to be friends now as well, who I also look to as mentors. I love what Denise Duffield Thomas is doing in her business. She's so transparent and so authentic in sharing what she does and her growth. I also look to Marie Forleo was probably one of my first mentors. And since then, so many people, actually, she's connected me to a lot of people. Denise Duffield Thomas was one of the people that I was connected to through Marie. And then I have people who I just partner with in my business who I really look to as mentors as well. You know, Leanna Ling is a partner of mine on a project we're working on, one of those Rave Ops project, but definitely a mentor in different areas of subject matter expertise. And I'd say that that's really how I look at mentorship these days. I look for people who have a specific skill, typically something that I'm lacking. That's what prompted me to look out to my male business mentor, the author of the book Business Brilliant. I was keeping in touch with him. I'd interviewed him for something, and I was reading his book again and sharing his work. And I'm like, oh, I really think I need you. I was struggling with at the time how to get scale but keep it intimate. Intimacy is one of my core values and that connection, but I wanted to scale. I want to grow my business. So how do I reach more people? How do I help more people and keep intimacy? And I reached out to him specifically for that because his book Business Brilliance talks about the difference between self-made millionaires and billionaires and the middle class. And I knew that I had some middle class mindsets that were really holding me back from becoming and moving toward that self-made millionaire activity and that level. And it's not necessarily about the money per se, but for me, that's really about impact. Yeah. I don't even know. I don't know what $1 million. What do I, 5 million, 10 million, $1 billion, what would I do? I don't even have that plan or that idea in my mind, but it's more about the impact for me and scale and reach. And that's numbers. It's an easy thing to measure. And I think it's important to measure at any level. So whatever your goal is, even if it's not a financial, if it's community growth, if it's impact of people, right? Those are all things we can point to and measure, which help us grow and give us something to move toward, because what gets measured gets done and gets the focus. So I reached out to him to help me, and that's really been beneficial. I definitely think it is so important to have female mentors because we bring something very different, but my male mentor has a very compassionate side that I respect. So it's attributes and traits and areas of expertise that I look for, male or female, right? And genuinely people that I can connect with on a personal level. I think that's really important from a mentorship perspective as well.
Oh, definitely. Because if you don't connect with them, your business is going to be built using some kind of weird energy that's not really aligned with yours.
Exactly. And the relationships just don't happen. I think at any level of business, whether it's someone who's a client, whether it's a mentor, whether it's someone you are paying as the client or a coach, that energy is so important.
I agree. So Amber, tell us, where can people find you online?
I can be found at niceops.com, NICEOPS. I've got Facebook, Amber McCue is my personal profile, and then Niceops is the business, Twitter at Amber McCue, Instagram, Amber McCue, Pinterest, Amber McCue, pretty easy. And then my email is amber@ambermccue. If anyone's looking for a referral or if something hits them and they have a quick question, I would be happy to hear from anyone.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You are so welcome. I'm so grateful to you for having me and for your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/80 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you.